1997. Gustavo Kuerten shocked the world by winning Roland Garros as world number 66, beating 3 former champions along the way. It was an amazing run, and it changed tennis for good, and for a reason you might not expect. His opponent was playing with natural gut strings, like pretty much everybody else on the tour back then. But Guga was playing with something more like these. Modern copoly strings come in countless varieties, with companies like Solinco offering options for every playing style. Something pretty essential when nearly every professional uses polyester. Poly has evolved into an entire performance category. Rounder shaped, softer firm, slicker textured, there's now a string for virtually every need on court. But we didn't get here without drama. From Guga to Rafa to Carlos, the history of poly is the history of spin. With the help of legendary string expert Roman Proksch, I wanted to find out exactly how we got here. And by enlisting some friends who just so happen to be part of my New York City tennis crew, feel the difference in just how far this technology has come for myself.
This thing's lethal.
Back in the 70s, it was all heavy wood-framed rackets with small heads and natural gut strings. Jimmy Connors pioneered the steel-framed racket, which allowed him to generate a heck of a lot more power, but the flip side was, it was super heavy. The solution to that was graphite, followed shortly by titanium and hypercarbon. But while racket technology kept evolving, strings were largely overlooked. At the time, few realized that the string bed would become just as important as the frame itself. If we want to get technical with the origin story, modern tennis strings started in 1875 with Pierre Babelot and sheep intestine. I'm not going to go too far into that because, believe me, once was enough. It was in the late 1950s that nylon was introduced as a synthetic alternative. It was cheaper and more durable, but it didn't have nearly the same feel. Then, in the start of the open era and beyond, feel was everything, as it still is today. Manufacturers spent decades trying to come up with a formula that would last better than gut while still keeping the pros in touch with the ball. Take alternatives like the Kevlar nylon blend Agassi used to play with. He said it was like hitting with a garbage can lid. Durability, but no spin. Soon, that would all change.
Gustavo Kuerten.
In 1997, Gustavo Kuerten was 20. He'd been inside the top 100 for less than a year, yet he'd been playing with polyester strings for 3. Yep, he was that far ahead of the curve. When he rocked up to Roland Garros, no one was ready for him. Part of the reason Spanish players are so dominant on clay is their emphasis on the topspin forehand. Clay, being such a slow surface, takes the pace off the ball and forces you to generate any kind of power yourself. You can't just hit through the ball, especially not if you want depth and angle for that rare clay winner. Point blank, you need spin. Ironically, Guga's opponent in the final, Sergei Bruguera, was actually one of the early masters of spin. In fact, he hit with the same average spin as Nadal at 3,300 RPMs. In 1995, his racket was literally being promoted as the ultimate spin racket, but it had nothing on Kuerten's setup. He came on court with Luxilon Original strings. Not to be confused with Luxilon Original Big Banger, ALU Power Big Banger, or Big Banger Original ALU Power Apache Helicopter. Long story short, they changed their string name after Guga and then confused us even more with their subsequent releases. Anyway, now that we're all on the same page, in the context of poly strings during those days, we have to backtrack here. Polyester strings had actually already been trialed before. The difference with these, the composition of a polyether-ether blend copolymer monofilament made it so that they could be strung at a lower tension, say 10 to 15 pounds lower than how you'd string natural gut or synthetic, all without sacrificing control. Now, I'm no string expert. I mainly know what I feel on my racket. That's why I called Roman Proksch, one of the most respected racket technicians and string experts in all of tennis, to explain what polyester was actually doing differently.
All polys in general are very dead strings, right? So it basically allows you to hit the ball really hard and the ball doesn't really go anywhere. So it goes somewhere for them because they are hitting it so hard with heavy spin, so they are using the muscle power.
What that meant for our Brazilian pioneer was that he could swing harder and faster without overhitting. And maximizing speed means maximizing spin.
The ability to spin the ball, to kind of hit with that full power open stance anywhere on the court, it kind of revolutionized the game. And it's really because of the polyester strings, to be honest. Otherwise, people couldn't play the way they played.
Guga took Sergei's own game away from him that day in 3 clean sets, and he never gave it back. It's important to note that poly didn't only work on clay. During the ATP Finals in 2000, Kuerten beat Pete Sampras and Andre Agassi back-to-back on indoor hardcourt to snag both the title and the year-end #1. And, well, in the tennis world, imitation is the highest form of flattery, so a year and a half later, Agassi switched to a poly mix himself.
He said, I can almost do anything from anywhere and the ball drops in.
It was catching on fast. By 2011, sales of poly strings accounted for 70% of string sales in Europe. Even Federer, one of the last ultimate purists of the old game, used poly in the crosses, well, of course keeping natural gut in the mains.
I have the gut in the main and the Luxilon in the crosses, and I've played with this combination since 2002.
This setup, well, it was set on combining gut's power with poly's durability and spin. Djokovic also did the same. But Nadal, the king of clay, was the maverick here who went all the way with an all-poly setup. In 2010, he even went a step further, switching to Babolat's infamous RPM Blast, which was described as a spin monster. Like I said earlier, where the top guys lead, the rest of the tour, and the way they play for that matter, follows. Heavy topspin allows you to keep your opponent stuck behind the baseline and neutralize their aggression, lending itself to the longer baseline rallies we're so used to seeing now. Can I go as far as to say that poly strings killed the serve and volley? I mean, they certainly didn't help. The quality of the return was going up, and the net became a dangerous place to be. That amount of spin could turn defense into offense in a split second. I mentioned the customization used by the big three. At the very top of tennis, it's a game of fine margins, and it's seemingly the small changes that can make all the difference. Going after those small changes was why a lot of players experimented with hybrid strings to isolate the perfect combination of power and feel. Though one company in particular started asking the question, what if all the answers lay in poly on its own? So I reached out to do a little bit more digging, and I couldn't believe where a simple email led me.
I think they were one of the first, if not the first, that exclusively really started developing and looking into the string and developing the polys as opposed to saying, yeah, we have a poly, here it is. They kind of said, well, let's see what we can do with it. Everybody kind of assumed, oh my God, the string never breaks. I don't have to string it. And then they realized, well, I kind of have to because it dropped the tension.
Poly loses tension faster than a lot of players expected. Well, it might have been Luxilon that pioneered Guga's strings. It was Solinco that really stepped up to revolutionize the poly landscape.
Solinco looked into it and came up with, the first models where they wouldn't drop the tension so much. That made the string a little bit stiffer. So they kind of said, well, how do we offset the stiffness?
Solinco started out with one problem to solve: tension loss. Their solution was Torbite, which was great for shape and spin, but painfully stiff. So they kept on experimenting, coming up with softer variations on Confidential and Hyper G. Those are particularly good strings for the younger juniors, but you still want power. So after 10 years and 20 different iterations, they released Mach-10, which I play with myself. For me, you get a ton of power that's naturally baked in and some decent spin potential, but it feels soft, almost like you're playing with gut.
The Torbite, that's kind of the forefront of the Solinco string family. That's one of the first, if not the first, that basically holds tension really well. So they would come up with it, so it has a shape, so it enables the 16, 17, 18-year-old boys to really kind of hit the ball hard. Some players would come and say, well, that's great, but it's too stiff, it's not soft enough. And that's kind of where the Hyper G came into being and made it, became famous also because of the bright color.
Solinco had a vision that poly was for everyone, no matter their age or level. It was just about finding the right spec to suit you. And this experimentation diversified the poly market. Suddenly, you had all the advantages of poly, plus the ability to customize it. That's round polys for predictability, shaped polys for spin, softer polys for comfort, and hybrids for feel. The hybrid system offers a few different possible setups, which takes the Federer approach of different mains and crosses, but keeps both of them poly.
One of the very successful one for us is when we use a shaped poly in the mains and let's say the Hyper G around in the cross, because it gives you ability to shape the ball, but you can also kind of flatten it out and put it away. As opposed to if you have a shape string in the whole bed, it's harder to do that.
I mean, there's such a massive selection out there now that you can mix and match without ever leaving the poly market. or even the Solinco website.
They keep trying to innovate. They keep trying to integrate different materials into kind of, let's see what's out there. Let's see, can we make it even better, softer, easier?
So that leaves us where we are now, with every player in the top 10 using some element of polyester in their strings, a topspin game that was unprecedented 40 years ago, and these guys paving the way. At the pro level, tiny differences in a string setup can change everything. But what about for the rest of us? Could we actually tell which string gave us more spin, which one gave us more control, and which one we would never want to use again? There was only one way to find out.
So how do these strings actually perform in practice? Well, we're gonna find out for ourselves. So we have Andy, one of the foremost stringers in all of New York City, wound tight. He's been doing frames here for pretty much the entire tennis community. Nick, tennis video extraordinaire, and yeah, you guys know Ryan. We have Hyper G in the 2023 Pure Aero, Mach-10 in the 2026 new Pure Aero that just dropped. Nick, you're holding like probably the most control-oriented setup out there. That is confidential in a Prince Phantom. And Ryan, what do you got?
This is the Wilson Blade Pro, and I have confidential soft in it. So this is the Aero 2013 with Torbite.
Pretty much the whole range.
Before we actually did this experiment, I actually spoke to the Solinco team and asked them just how they playtest their strings. We ended up following their framework of some ground strokes, some spin serves, and touch at the net, going string by string. I was pretty sure I already knew my favorite, but I tried to keep an open mind.
It's such easy power, you don't really have to swing all that hard. Such easy power coming off of this. I really just don't feel like I have to take a full swing.
Torbite always has, I think, the best spin out of all the Solinco strings. Gives you the best control, power. Torbite's probably the most durable strings in my opinion. Always good spin with the Torbite, the TB.
This is probably the softest of the Solinco strings. And I guess what you are sacrificing, maybe a little bit in terms of feel, you're definitely gaining back in not only just like power, but definitely comfort. But I had wrist problems way back in the day and was honestly scared to play with a bed of full poly until I tried Mach-10.
Then I gave Torbite a go myself.
I'll say the stuff that I'm sending long with the Mach-10 is like really like sitting down deeper in the court with the Torbite. Who's the kind of player that's going to play well with the Mach-10 versus the Torbite?
Mach-10, I would say, is a great string for people that are just getting into a poly for the first time because it's a softer string, so you won't have that intense feel of a stiff poly right out the gate. So you can play with it. It gives you good power. I'll give the edge in power to the Mach-10. So I would say beginner to advanced players. So for Torbite, I'd say it's a bit more of a control string than the Mach-10. Gives you a lot of spin potential. So if you have a spinny game, an all-court game, Torbite, if you can handle the stiffness, is your string.
So that's Torbite and Mach-10. Both incredible strings, but so different. What about the other marquee strings? Nick had the OG college tennis setup, Hyper G in a Babolat Pure Aero 98, a setup designed for maximum power and spin.
The strings really catch the ball, especially with the serve. Great strings for spin. If you're just like not the tallest player and you really gotta take advantage of like just moving your opponents around, I think Hyper G's kind of the way to go.
Oh God, that's different. I definitely feel like this is a lot more power and a lot more spin compared to the confidential that I was just using. But when you pocket it, that's a nice feeling. And it's a lot of easy spin there. Look at that.
Meanwhile, Ryan was using pretty much the opposite of that. The stiffer, control-focused confidential, and a control-oriented Prince Phantom, no less.
It is a tougher string, but there is confidential soft, which I do really enjoy. And it's basically all the pros of regular confidential while being easier on your arm, so you can put all the shape that you want on the ball. And yeah, it's great. Otherwise, can't go wrong. I feel like confidential on any frame, it's gonna be a good decision.
I tried it out myself, and I've got to say, sorry Ryan, but I'm not sure I agree.
Had some decent jump, but I still feel like I'm not getting as much on this compared to the Mach-10. I don't like this. Yeah, I don't really like this setup. This isn't for me. I feel like I'm just trying to do too much with this. Maybe it's mental, but I just love that easy power that you get off the Mach-10, that when you put this in my hands, it's like I'm just realizing, wait a minute, I have to actually like swing to make the ball do something.
It goes without saying that by choosing poly, you're maximizing the power, spin, and control potential compared to what else is on the market. For me, what's really great about Mach-10 is I like the softer feel. It doesn't really feel like I'm killing my arm when I'm swinging each time. And in my old age, what more can I ask for? If you want to check out any of the strings that we demoed here in the video, you can scan the QR code here or hit the link in the description, and it'll take you to the best place in the world to get them. That's what the poly market has become all about. This insane level of customization, with brands like Solinco catering to player needs from the amateur to the pro level. What works for Ryan won't work for me. All the way at the top of the sport, what worked for Roger was never going to work for Rafa. To bring it back to Guga's breakthrough in 1997, little did we know that what we saw then was a sign of what was to come. It forced tennis manufacturers to evolve and gave the opportunity for brands like Solinco to come in and gain the ultimate edge. That day in 1997, Guga conquered Roland Garros and poly conquered the string market. And tennis has never looked back. A massive thank you to Solinco for sponsoring this video. And it's always just crazy to me where going down these little rabbit holes in the tennis world actually lead. Guys, if you loved this video, be sure to like and subscribe. And as always, keep going for the lines.